The ocean is wide, endless, and full of whispers. Its waves carry secrets older than time itself. Some secrets are gentle, like lullabies of the tide. Others are hidden, waiting in the silence of the deep. This is the story of Poseidon, the lord of the sea. He ruled not with chains, but with rhythm and flow. His trident shimmered, guiding the waves in storms. Yet even the god of oceans carried a secret unknown. One night, the currents grew heavy, still and strange. Fishermen noticed the hush, their nets pulled back empty. Dolphins swam close to shore, restless and unsettled. The seabirds circled above, calling louder than before. Beneath the calm surface, something ancient stirred. A whisper moved through the waters, soft but clear. Poseidon listened, his heart tuned to the deep. It spoke of a secret lost in shadow and silence, a truth hidden where sunlight could never reach. The sea seemed to wait, holding its breath in mystery. And so began Poseidon's journey into the unknown, a journey where waves would reveal what words could not. The ocean stirred beneath a moonlit sky, restless and strange. Its rhythm faltered, the waves breaking softer than before. Currents slowed, drifting without direction, unsure of their path. The deep sea creatures moved differently, uneasy in their silence. Fishermen at the coast looked out and felt the change. They whispered of tides that no longer followed the moon. Nets that once returned heavy now came back empty. Boats rocked on still waters, anchored but unsettled in calm. Old sailors shook their heads, recalling omens from the past. They spoke of times when the sea grew quiet and dim. Whispers carried across harbors, fear mixing with salt air. Children asked why the gulls no longer flew so high. Mothers noticed the dolphins swam closer than they should. The dolphins clicked and turned in circles, restless and wary. The whales sang songs slower, deeper, as if warning. Above, the seabirds wheeled in strange, uneven patterns. They cried louder, their calls sharp like unanswered questions. In villages, people gathered at the shore each evening. They stood still, listening to the silence of the sea. Even the waves seemed to hush their crash on the sand. No storms rose, but the calm felt heavier than thunder. The ocean was waiting, but for what? No one could tell. Beneath the stillness, ancient currents carried a secret untold. The coral reefs glowed faintly, colors dimmed under the dark. Schools of fish darted together, then scattered in confusion. The seaweed drifted lazily, tangled in threads of quiet. From the cliffs above, watchers sensed the ocean's unease. The horizon seemed distant, blurred like a fading memory. At night, the stars reflected upon waters too still. The moon, silver and round, gazed into the depths below. Poseidon himself felt the pull of the changing sea. His domain no longer sang with balance and rhythm. The god listened, standing, tall where waves once roared. His trident glowed faintly, humming with a quiet vibration. The sound was not storm nor wind, but something deeper. It was as though the ocean itself tried to speak. Poseidon closed his eyes and felt the pulse beneath. It was a heartbeat, faint yet steady, hidden in silence. The sea, his great companion, was whispering its unrest. A message stirred in the currents, carried far and wide. Even the smallest shell seemed to echo the same tone. The waters had a secret, buried in shadow and time. A secret so old, even Poseidon had forgotten its shape. But now it rose again, calling through stillness and calm. The world above only saw emptiness and quiet waves. But below, the deep prepared to reveal what it guarded. Poseidon knew the ocean's silence was not without reason. The sea was restless, waiting for the one who could listen. And in that waiting, the journey into mystery began. Poseidon stood still, his gaze fixed on the horizon of silver light. The calm water did not soothe him, it only deepened his worry. He felt the sea breathe slower, as if each wave carried weight. The trident in his hand pulsed with a glow, soft but steady. It was not a warning of storms, but a call from the deep. He pressed the trident gently into the sand beneath his feet. The seabed answered with a faint hum, like a hidden voice. Poseidon knew the ocean spoke, though not in mortal words. Its silence had meaning, its pause was a message in disguise. The god closed his eyes, listening with more than ears alone. He heard the flow of rivers merging into the endless blue. He felt the push of tides, their rhythm broken and uneven. He sensed the confusion of creatures who lived under his care. Each heartbeat of the sea told him a story of imbalance. The once clear pathways of water had grown clouded and weak. Corals dimmed their colors, as though fading into quiet grief. Seaweed drifted without direction, tangled in its own longing. The whales no longer sang in harmony with the currents. Their deep voices trembled with tones of question and doubt. Poseidon opened his eyes and looked at the stars above. Even the night sky seemed to wait, holding back its shine. The moon's reflection on the water wavered, as if uncertain. It reminded him of the old times, when secrets were buried, times when the ocean kept mysteries locked in endless depth. He remembered the stories of the first currents, ancient and wise. They had whispered of a hidden truth, bound by silence and time. A truth that would rise only when the sea itself grew restless. Poseidon felt that moment was near, closer with every tide. He walked along the shore, each step heavy with knowing. The waves touched his feet as if begging him to listen. Their rhythm faltered, starting strong but fading into stillness. The god bent low and touched the surface with his hand. The water rippled, carrying warmth and sadness in its touch. It was a plea, a call for him to seek what was hidden. Poseidon whispered softly, words meant for the ocean alone. "I am listening, my oldest companion. Tell me what you keep." The trident glowed brighter, responding to his quiet vow. From the distance, dolphins leapt, their bodies arcing in silver light. They circled as if guiding him, restless yet full of purpose. Their calls echoed through the stillness, sharp and insistent. Poseidon knew they sensed the same pull from the deep. The dolphins had always been messengers, bridges of worlds. They did not speak, but their movement was a language. Their dance drew him away from the calm of the shore. They urged him toward waters older and darker than memory. The god lifted his trident and followed their silent call. He stepped into the waves, and the sea welcomed him home. The calm surface parted, forming a path into mystery. And in that moment, Poseidon knew the journey had begun. The dolphins swam ahead, their sleek bodies cutting through silver waves. They moved with urgency, as if carrying a message from the deep. Poseidon followed, each step into the water bringing him closer to silence. The shore faded behind, swallowed by mist that rose from the sea. The horizon stretched before him, endless and shimmering with mystery. The ocean floor shifted beneath, guiding him where no mortal could walk. Schools of fish darted past, fleeing toward places unknown and hidden. Their motion was fast, restless, like sparks scattered in the current. The sea grew darker, its color changing from blue to indigo. Shadows twisted in the water, yet no threat revealed its form. Poseidon kept his eyes steady, his trident glowing in soft gold. The dolphins turned in circles, waiting for him to continue onward. He raised his hand, feeling vibrations travel through the heavy tide. The pulse of the ocean grew stronger, steady as a heartbeat. The god understood the signal. The ocean was pointing the way. He descended deeper, light fading, sound shifting into muted tones. The world above disappeared, replaced by silence and liquid night. Yet the water itself seemed to hum, alive with hidden voices. Whispers curled around him, words without language yet full of meaning. They spoke of a secret, one lost but never forgotten by time. Poseidon's chest grew heavy, not with fear, but with knowing. He felt the weight of centuries pressing through the salt around him. The dolphins clicked sharply, breaking the silence like bells in fog. Their sound was clear, urging him to follow without hesitation. He trusted them, for they had always served as guides of truth. The sea floor opened wide into a trench, vast and endless. Its edges glowed faintly, lined with corals like lanterns in the dark. Poseidon paused at the edge, gazing into the abyss below. The depth stretched beyond sight, a road of shadow and wonder. The whispers grew louder here, echoing as if from ancient walls. He tightened his grip on the trident, feeling its power respond. It shimmered brighter, casting a warm light into the endless dark. With that glow, the trench seemed less fearful, more inviting. Poseidon stepped forward, letting the currents pull him down gently. He descended slowly, surrounded by drifting creatures of luminous glow. Their light flickered softly, guiding him like stars in a midnight sky. The dolphins followed close, weaving around him in careful arcs. Their presence was steady, their calls echoing with purpose. Deeper still, Poseidon felt the ocean thrum like a living heart. The sound filled him with both awe and quiet anticipation. He whispered, not with command, but with reverence to the sea. "Show me, my oldest friend, what you have hidden away." The trench answered with a low, steady rumble that shook the water. It was not violent, but powerful, like stone shifting after long rest. A path revealed itself, narrow yet glowing with pale blue light. Poseidon followed it, each step leading him closer to revelation. The dolphins swam ahead, their bodies glowing faint in the path. The whispers turned into song, a melody rising from the abyss. It was a song older than gods, older than tides themselves. The ocean was ready to reveal its secret to the one who listened. And Poseidon walked deeper, prepared to hear what no one else could hear. The trench deepened, stretching into silence that felt endless and wide. Poseidon's light glimmered faintly, brushing against walls of stone and coral. The dolphins swam close, their silver bodies weaving like ribbons of hope. Their eyes shone with trust, urging him forward without a word. The water grew colder, yet not hostile, only ancient in its touch. Poseidon sensed the weight of time pressing against his every step. Whispers curled stronger now, no longer faint, but steady in rhythm. They rose and fell like a chant carried by unseen voices. It was the language of the sea, older than wind and fire. Each note seemed to call his name, guiding him deeper inside. He walked along the glowing path, each stone alive with memory. The trench walls shimmered faintly, etched with markings of forgotten lore. Symbols glowed, lines forming shapes of waves, shells, and stars. Poseidon reached out, his hand brushing against the ancient carvings. The stone vibrated softly, humming with the breath of history. He understood these were records, stories carved by the first currents. They had left messages not for mortals, but for the sea itself. Now the ocean was letting him see what it once guarded. The dolphins whistled sharply, drawing his gaze forward to the dark. There, the trench opened wider, revealing a hidden chamber below. Its entrance was shaped like an arch, framed with coral and pearl. Light poured from within, soft and welcoming, not blinding to the eyes. Poseidon stepped closer, his trident glowing brighter as if in recognition. The archway pulsed with the same rhythm as the ocean's heart. He felt it beat through his chest, filling him with awe and calm. Crossing the threshold, he entered a place untouched by centuries. The chamber was vast, a garden of coral blooming in silence. Colors glowed faintly, painting the water with hues of blue and gold. Shells lined the floor, each one humming like a quiet bell. In the center rested a great shell, larger than any mortal ship. Its surface shimmered with light, soft waves of silver and emerald. The whispers converged here, all voices merging into one melody. Poseidon approached slowly, reverence steady in his every movement. The dolphins circled around the chamber, keeping silent watch. They too seemed humbled by the presence of this ancient relic. Poseidon placed his hand upon the surface of the great shell. It was warm, alive, beating softly, as if it carried a heart. The moment he touched it, the chamber filled with radiant sound. Not loud, but vast, like the sea itself breathing out a truth. The markings on the walls glowed brighter, lines weaving together. They formed an image of land and sea joined hand in hand. Poseidon's eyes softened, for he began to understand the meaning. This was no treasure of power, but a truth of harmony. The sea was not separate from the earth, nor earth from sky. All were bound, one to another, woven into balance eternal. Poseidon lifted his trident, bowing his head in silent respect. The great shell pulsed again, brighter, as if it recognized his vow. And within that chamber of light, the ocean's secret waited to be told. The great shell glowed softly, its light rippling across the chamber walls. Poseidon stood still, his hand pressed gently to its surface. The dolphins circled slowly, their fins brushing through the shimmering water. The whispers that filled the sea began to form into harmony. No longer scattered voices, but one song rising from the deep. It was calm, ancient, filled with both sorrow and hope. Poseidon listened, his eyes closing to absorb its every note. The song told of beginnings, when sea and sky were one. It spoke of rivers that once carried the dreams of the earth, of mountains rising, yet bowing to the rhythm of the tide. The ocean had seen it all, keeper of memory eternal. And now, the ocean chose to share its memory with him. The great shell trembled lightly, pulsing like a living heart. Its light grew brighter, spilling across the coral and stone. The markings on the chamber walls shifted, alive with meaning. They formed moving shapes, waves dancing with winds above. The sea and sky twined together, birthing the first storms. Then came the land, rising like a child from the deep. And all were bound, not separate, but threads of one loom. Poseidon felt the truth in his bones, older than his reign. He realized the sea had never belonged to him alone. He was its guardian, not its master, sworn to its balance. The dolphins clicked softly as though affirming this revelation. Their voices echoed with trust, blending into the ocean's song. Poseidon opened his eyes and gazed upon the glowing shell. He asked softly, "Why reveal this truth to me now?" The chamber answered not with words, but with a gentle shift. The water warmed, currents moving like breath across his face. The message was clear. The world above had begun to forget. Humankind had turned from the whispers of the sea and sky. The ocean carried their burdens, yet they no longer listened. Balance weakened, and the secret now had to be remembered. Poseidon lowered his head, sorrowful yet filled with purpose. He understood the sea's plea, its need to be heard again. The great shell pulsed brighter, casting waves of silver light. Its glow reached upward, stretching into the trench beyond. For a moment, it seemed as though the whole ocean shined. Creatures of the deep gathered at the chamber's edge. Whales, turtles, and schools of fish hovered in silent awe. Even the smallest shrimp paused, glowing faintly in the current. All life answered the secret, each in their own still way. The chamber became a sanctuary, alive with unity and calm. Poseidon felt his heart stir with both pride and humility. He lifted his trident, and its light joined the shell's glow. Two lights merged, weaving together into one radiant stream. The chamber walls blazed with patterns of land and sea. The song rose higher, not in volume, but in clarity. It was no longer a whisper, but a truth set free. Poseidon spoke softly, his voice carrying through the water. I hear you, and I will carry this truth forward. The dolphins leapt, spinning as if rejoicing in the vow. The shell quieted, its light softening but never fading away. The chamber settled, calm and steady like a heart at peace. Yet Poseidon knew this was only the beginning of the secret. Poseidon lingered in the chamber, the glow of the great shell still fresh in his sight. The dolphins swam slowly, their eyes watching him with quiet expectation. The silence was not heavy, but full, like the pause between heartbeats. He felt the weight of the ocean's truth pressing gently on his shoulders. It was not a burden, but a calling, soft yet impossible to ignore. The sea had trusted him with its memory, its secret, its plea, and now it was his duty to carry it beyond this sacred place. Poseidon raised his trident, its light flickering in harmony with the shell. The chamber responded, currents stirring as if blessing his vow. The markings on the walls shimmered one last time before fading. The dolphins clicked and circled, urging him to leave the chamber. Poseidon gave the shell a final touch, reverent and gentle as farewell. Then he turned, moving toward the archway, where light flowed outward. The trench beyond felt less dark, softened by the glow behind him. Every ripple of water seemed alive, whispering echoes of the secret. He swam upward slowly, his thoughts anchored by the revelation. The dolphins swam close, weaving through the current at his side. Their bodies gleamed silver, like living fragments of the moon. They guided him upward, through the narrowing walls of the trench. The journey back felt shorter, as though the ocean itself cleared the way. When they emerged from the deep, the sea stretched vast and calm. Above, sunlight filtered down, breaking into golden shards of warmth. Poseidon paused, lifting his gaze toward the surface light. He felt the bond between sea and sky more deeply than before. It was not just light breaking the water, but sky reaching for sea. And the sea rose to meet it, embracing in silence, eternal. Poseidon breathed this balance, letting it root within his spirit. He knew this truth must not remain hidden in the ocean's depths. The world above had to remember, to listen, to understand again. He lifted his trident, sending a ripple of light through the water. It spread outward, reaching fish, coral, and even distant whales. The ocean answered with a low hum, steady and affirming. It was as if the entire sea had heard his vow once more. Poseidon began his journey toward the coast, dolphins swimming beside him. They leapt now and then, breaking the surface with playful grace. Their joy carried hope, a sign that the ocean approved of his path. As he drew nearer to land, Poseidon slowed his pace. The shoreline loomed ahead, waves rising to meet the sandy edge. He had not walked upon the earth for many long years. Yet now, the sea itself seemed to encourage his return. He stepped from the water, his trident glowing with faint light. The dolphins lingered near the shore, waiting, loyal and patient. Poseidon looked across the land, his eyes searching the horizon. Mountains stood tall, rivers winding like silver veins through earth. The wind brushed his face, warm and filled with the scent of soil. He felt the unity he had seen within the chamber's vision. Sky, sea, and land, bound together in one living harmony. But he also sensed how fragile this balance had become. The earth trembled faintly, not with anger, but with weariness. Poseidon knew the ocean's secret was more than revelation. It was a call to restore, to remind, to renew the bond. And his journey had only just begun. Poseidon stood upon the shore, the waves curling around his feet in quiet rhythm. The land stretched before him, vast and alive, with its own pulse. Birds wheeled high above, their cries sharp against the endless sky. The dolphins lingered near the shallows, waiting with patience and trust. Poseidon breathed deeply, drawing in the scents of soil and wind. It was different from the sea, yet still bound to its harmony. He felt the call of rivers, hidden paths winding through the land. Each carried whispers of the ocean, flowing back to its embrace. He began to walk, his trident glowing faintly with silver light. Every step upon the earth echoed, with memory long forgotten. The ground welcomed him, though faint tremors hinted at imbalance. Grass swayed with the breeze, but shadows lingered behind the hills. He passed through fields where streams shimmered like crystal threads. The waters sang softly, though weaker than he remembered before. The rivers no longer flowed as boldly, their voices faint and tired. Poseidon knelt beside one stream, dipping his hand into its flow. The water cooled his palm, but its song was strained and thin. He understood the secret's meaning even more in that moment. The world above was faltering, its balance fraying at the edges. The ocean had revealed the truth so he could guide renewal. The dolphins leapt nearby, splashing as if to encourage his journey. Poseidon smiled faintly, their presence a tether to the sea's heart. He continued walking, following the river's winding silver path inland. Trees rose tall around him, their branches whispering with ancient voices. The forest welcomed him, though silence lingered where songs once thrived. Birds perched quietly, their wings folded as though waiting for change. Poseidon paused, laying his hand upon the bark of a tree. It pulsed faintly with life, but its rhythm was slowed and weary. He whispered softly, "The secret lives here too, waiting to be heard." The earth responded with a gentle rustle, leaves swaying overhead. He moved deeper into the forest, guided by river and wind. The air grew cooler, filled with scents of moss and stone. Soon he reached a clearing where the river pooled in silence. The water mirrored the sky, clouds drifting upon its still surface. At the center of the pool, a small island rose with grace. On it stood stones carved with markings of forgotten hands. Poseidon stepped across, the water parting easily before his stride. He approached the stones, their surfaces worn by centuries of time. Symbols etched upon them glowed faintly in the dim light. They spoke of harmony, of unity between sea, land, and sky. But their glow flickered, weakened by neglect and fading memory. Poseidon touched the carvings, his trident pulsing in response. Light spread slowly, filling the symbols with gentle silver fire. The stones awakened, their whispers joining the river's tired song. Together, they formed a melody, fragile but true in its depth. The dolphins chirped from the shore, their voices rising in chorus. The forest hushed, listening to the return of balance's hymn. Poseidon felt the earth breathe easier, though only for a moment. The secret was clear. This harmony had to be rekindled everywhere. not only in the sea but in rivers, forests, and skies. The balance of the world depended on each thread being remembered. Poseidon lifted his gaze, determination steady within his eyes. His journey was far from finished, for the secret's path had widened, and he would walk it, guardian of the ocean, keeper of the harmony. Poseidon remained in the clearing, the stones still glowing faintly beneath his touch. The river whispered softly, carrying the song further downstream into silence. The dolphins swam along the pool's edge, their eyes bright with awareness. They sensed what he sensed, that the harmony was fragile yet alive. Poseidon rose slowly, his trident glowing brighter with each heartbeat. The carvings upon the stones flickered, but did not fade completely. It was as if the forest itself was waiting for his next step. He turned toward the river, listening to its thin but steady flow. It carried him onward, guiding him deeper into the land's embrace. The trees swayed gently, leaves whispering stories of time unspoken. Poseidon followed, each stride filled with the weight of purpose. He passed through valleys where shadows lingered, long and unbroken. The rivers grew weaker, streams dwindling to shallow trickles of water. Birds sang faintly, their songs short and hollow against the air. He paused often, touching the earth and listening with closed eyes. The soil trembled, tired, but not yet silent, asking for renewal. Poseidon knew this was the secret's warning and its promise. Balance could still be restored, but only through remembrance. He continued until hills rose before him, covered in green and stone. From their sides poured waterfalls, though smaller than they once had been. The sound of rushing water filled him with both sorrow and hope. He climbed, guided by the silver glow of his trident. At the summit, he stood where land and sky met in vastness. The wind swept around him, strong and filled with restless voices. Clouds moved swiftly, their shadows racing across the earth below. The dolphins leapt in the waters far below, specks of silver light. They were never far, even when the path led above the shore. Poseidon raised his trident high, and the skies seemed to pause. Thunder rumbled faintly, not in anger, but in recognition. The bond between sea, land, and sky shimmered faintly in that moment. He saw it as threads of silver stretching in every direction. But many threads were frayed, some nearly broken, dangling with silence. He understood the task before him, to mend what had been forgotten. Poseidon lowered his trident, letting its light spread through the air. The threads glimmered briefly, responding with fragile but true song. He whispered softly, "I will weave again what has been lost." The hills echoed, the waterfalls brightening with renewed strength. The rivers below stirred, carrying water with a clearer voice. The earth sighed gently, a moment of relief in its weary heart. Poseidon descended slowly, the path leading him back toward the river. He followed its flow until it widened into a vast plain. Here, the grass bent in waves, golden beneath the light of the sun. Animals grazed quietly, yet their eyes watched him with quiet knowing. They too were part of the harmony, threads woven into balance. Poseidon walked among them, his presence neither feared nor resisted. The dolphins swam along channels that wound across the plain. Together, they moved forward, guided by the secret's call. He felt the ocean within him, but also the sky and land, no longer separate, but one great voice rising in unity. The journey stretched onward, and Poseidon did not falter, for he was bound now to the secret and to the balance it sought. Poseidon walked across the plain, the golden grass whispering beneath the steady wind. The dolphins followed channels that cut through the earth like silver veins. The sky above stretched vast and open, filled with drifting clouds of white. Every step carried him further into the heart of the land's memory. He listened closely, hearing faint echoes of rivers long gone and forgotten. The soil was rich, yet strained, its rhythm slower than it once was. Birds circled overhead, their wings etching patterns against the endless sky. Animals grazed nearby, pausing at times to lift their heads toward him. They did not fear, for they knew his presence carried balance and calm. Poseidon felt their silent trust as part of the harmony's call. He walked until the plain gave way to a valley of stone. Here, cliffs rose high, their faces carved by winds of countless ages. The river wound between them, its waters faint, but still alive. The dolphins swam within it, their bodies brushing against rocks with ease. Poseidon followed, the cliffs echoing his footsteps like an ancient drum. He paused, lifting his trident, its light brushing against the stone walls. Symbols appeared faintly, etched by hands long vanished from the earth. They told of times when land and sea honored the same vow. The vow to keep balance sacred, to listen, and to protect. But the markings grew faint, washed thin by centuries of neglect. Poseidon reached out, tracing them with his fingers gently and slow. His trident pulsed, silver light flowing into the worn carvings. The cliffs responded, glowing softly with voices long asleep. The valley filled with echoes, a song of remembrance awakening again. The dolphins leapt from the water, their cries joining the rising sound. The earth vibrated faintly, not with pain, but with stirring life. Poseidon closed his eyes, breathing in the weight of the melody. He felt the secret stronger now, no longer confined to the sea. It lived here too, waiting in stone, in river, in the breath of land. He opened his eyes and continued deeper through the valley. The cliffs narrowed until he reached a cavern mouth of shadow. The dolphins circled the river's bend, waiting but unwilling to follow. Poseidon stepped into the cavern, his trident casting silver light ahead. The air cooled, the walls dripping with water from unseen streams. He moved carefully, each step echoing in the vast, hollow space. Deeper still, until the cavern widened into a hidden chamber. At its center stood a pool, glowing faintly, with inner light. The water shimmered, not like any river or sea he had known. It pulsed in rhythm, steady as a heart, ancient and alive. Poseidon approached, kneeling at its edge, his reflection clear in the glow. The pool whispered, voices rising like threads of waterborne song. It told of balance broken, of rivers silenced, of skies turned heavy. But it also spoke of hope, of guardians to mend what was lost. Poseidon dipped his hand into the pool, and light spread outward. It surged into the cavern walls, revealing more ancient carvings. They spoke not just of unity, but of responsibility shared by all. Not only gods, not only seas, but mortals too must remember. The dolphins whistled from the river, their cries echoing faintly within. Poseidon rose, his trident glowing brighter than it had before. He knew the secret was almost whole, its truth now nearly complete. But he also understood the greatest part of it lay ahead. And the ocean's secret would only be revealed when all voices answered. Poseidon walked across the plain, the golden grass whispering beneath the steady wind. The dolphins followed channels that cut through the earth like silver veins. The sky above stretched vast and open, filled with drifting clouds of white. Every step carried him further into the heart of the land's memory. He listened closely, hearing faint echoes of rivers long gone and forgotten. The soil was rich, yet strained, its rhythm slower than it once was. Birds circled overhead, their wings etching patterns against the endless sky. Animals grazed nearby, pausing at times to lift their heads toward him. They did not fear, for they knew his presence carried balance and calm. Poseidon felt their silent trust as part of the harmony's call. He walked until the plain gave way to a valley of stone. Here cliffs rose high, their faces carved by winds of countless ages. The river wound between them, its waters faint but still alive. The dolphins swam within it, their bodies brushing against rocks with ease. Poseidon followed, the cliffs echoing his footsteps like an ancient drum. He paused, lifting his trident, its light brushing against the stone walls. Symbols appeared faintly, etched by hands long vanished from the earth. They told of times when land and sea honored the same vow. The vow to keep balance sacred, to listen and to protect. But the markings grew faint, washed thin by centuries of neglect. Poseidon reached out, tracing them with his fingers gently and slow. His trident pulsed, silver light flowing into the worn carvings. The cliffs responded, glowing softly with voices long asleep. The valley filled with echoes, a song of remembrance awakening again. The dolphins leapt from the water, their cries joining the rising sound. The earth vibrated faintly, not with pain, but with stirring life. Poseidon closed his eyes, breathing in the weight of the melody. He felt the secret stronger now, no longer confined to the sea. It lived here too, waiting in stone, in river, in the breath of land. He opened his eyes and continued deeper through the valley. The cliffs narrowed until he reached a cavern mouth of shadow. The dolphins circled the river's bend, waiting but unwilling to follow. Poseidon stepped into the cavern, his trident casting silver light ahead. The air cooled, the walls dripping with water from unseen streams. He moved carefully, each step echoing in the vast, hollow space. Deeper still, until the cavern widened into a hidden chamber. At its center stood a pool, glowing faintly with inner light. The water shimmered, not like any river or sea he had known. It pulsed in rhythm, steady as a heart, ancient and alive. Poseidon approached, kneeling at its edge, his reflection clear in the glow. The pool whispered, voices rising like threads of waterborne song. It told of balance broken, of rivers silenced, of skies turned heavy. But it also spoke of hope, of guardians to mend what was lost. Poseidon dipped his hand into the pool, and light spread outward. It surged into the cavern walls, revealing more ancient carvings. They spoke not just of unity, but of responsibility shared by all. Not only gods, not only seas, but mortals too must remember. The dolphins whistled from the river, their cries echoing faintly within. Poseidon rose, his trident glowing brighter than it had before. He knew the secret was almost whole, its truth now nearly complete. But he also understood the greatest part of it lay ahead. And the ocean's secret would only be revealed when all voices answered. The sun lowered gently, painting the sky in gold and soft crimson light. Poseidon stood at the edge of the plain, watching shadows stretch long. The dolphins leapt in the fading glow, their bodies silver against dusk. The river whispered louder now, its waters full and alive once more. Birds circled above, singing with clearer voices than in many ages. The land exhaled as if relieved, balance returning with quiet grace. Poseidon leaned on his trident, the glow faint but steady in hand. It no longer burned with urgency, but hummed with gentle assurance. The carvings he had touched, the stones he had awakened, all endured, They carried the memory forward, no longer lost to silence and time. The secret was no longer hidden, but shared with every breath of earth. He felt it in the soil, in the rivers, in the wind itself. Mortals would hear it too, if they listened with open hearts. For the harmony belonged not only to gods, but to all who lived. Poseidon turned, his gaze resting on the horizon of sea and sky. The ocean called, its waves reaching for him with endless familiarity. Yet he did not hurry, for the land still held part of him. Balance was not about dominion, but about belonging to the whole. The dolphins whistled softly, urging him toward the waters once again. He smiled, hearing in their voices the joy of renewed promise. The plains shimmered with golden grass, bending in gentle rhythm. Trees rustled as though whispering thanks to the returning tide of life. Poseidon knew his journey would continue, across seas and through storms. But he also knew the greatest truth. The secret could never be lost again. As long as even one voice remembered, the harmony would remain alive. He stepped into the river, the dolphins circling around his legs. The water welcomed him, bright and cool. Carrying him back to the sea, each ripple sang softly, carrying memory into the vastness beyond. The valley behind him stood brighter, cliffs glowing faint with echoes. The cavern and its pool remained, a heart still beating in silence. It would wait for those who came after, seekers of the same truth. Poseidon raised his trident one final time toward the evening sky. Thunder rolled faintly, not in warning, but in solemn recognition. The sky glowed, clouds tinged with silver where his light touched. Sea and land breathed as one, voices joined in perfect unison. The ocean's secret was never about power, but about shared remembrance. It was about listening, about holding, about protecting what was sacred. Poseidon let the trident rest, its glow fading into gentle calm. The dolphins dove ahead, leading him toward the horizon's edge. The sea opened wide, endless, waiting with eternal embrace. He walked forward without hesitation, each step a promise renewed. Behind him, rivers ran clearer, skies stretched freer, earth sang louder. Before him, waves rolled with timeless strength, steady and unbroken. The journey had ended, but the harmony had only begun. Poseidon's voice lingered softly, carried by wind and tide alike. The secret belongs to all. Keep it, and the world will endure. The ocean answered, and the world breathed in balance once again.